Our panel today is really focused on how do we as women in leadership in this new evolving era, how do we move strategically?
I'd like each of you to start this conversation by speaking to us about that time in your career journey where you really led and you made sure that you amplified your voice. Beyond just getting a seat at the table, you made sure you amplified your voice and you were remembered. And I'll start off with you, Honorable Sicily.
In my brief introduction, allow me to also confess that I'm a recovering bureaucrat. And I'm a perfectionist, recovering. But perhaps I'm also the only politician who is going to be looking for votes in 2027 to be a governor. No, I'm going to my village. Having been that, and it's part of responding to your question, it's part of my failed vision in 2022 when I resigned from cabinet to actually ran for an elective office as a governor of a county that I love, Nyandarua, and I was pulled back because as it is, you're sitting there thinking you're not, ready to lead, but when you make a move, the boys club also tells you are not ready, so they pull you back. But like Yawa I think it's Yawa who said this, it's always useful for you to take a failed attempt at a vision you hold dear for reasons that you're passionate about. You take that as a school. And therefore, my being pulled back in 2022 for me is a great lesson that helped me to actually stretch my resilience, my reinvention journey as a leadership coach, my reinvention journey as somebody who is growing leaders across the continent. As a young manager, I was a CEO in my 30s and I was running one of the most, actually was the leading sector in the country, that was the tea sector. At my 30s, and I was able within a record time to grow the export earnings for this sector from 47 billion Kenya shillings in export earnings to 130 billion shillings. And I didn't expect anybody to celebrate me because it looks like an obvious day job, but I knew that I had actually tripled the earnings more or less with the teams that I was leading the organization with. And I knew that it was actually time for me to signal that I was a grown-up girl, but they wouldn't offer it. So I really had to, get out there, apply for more challenging opportunities with a change in administration in 2013. And I was appointed as a principal secretary for agriculture. And because I knew a thing or two about running agriculture sectors successfully. And the rest is history, because inside 2 years of being a principal secretary in terms of agriculture with a lot of innovative initiatives that we took at that point in time, the president was able to actually take note of what it is I was doing then. And surprise, surprise, one Thursday evening, I saw my name being moved on to cabinet on account of a promotion that I had not lobbied for, that I hadn't asked for. And the lessons that I took out of that is what one of the participants has shared. You got to be, when you signal, you got to be ready, toil for excellence, because it doesn't come because you sat and waited. You signal, you prepare, your competence, I call it the 3 C's of making an impact and a difference. Competence, credibility, that comes with the competence that you carry, confidence that you project, you know what it is you're doing, and this is where self-promotion becomes very important, because they won't just note. There's a lot of you doing very great work behind the scenes, and until and unless you are confident enough to raise up your hand, would they notice and give you a chance at the table. Thank you.
I like that. And you said you knew a thing or two, so you have to be competent to have that confidence. And Emma, I'd like you to speak to that. You're in a very male-dominated field, architect, You are the first female president of the Architectural Association of Kenya. Tell us, when was that point that you decided, you know what, despite this being a male-dominated field, I'm going to shine, I'm going to do the work, and people will see me for my good things, and I will amplify my voice. By the time I leave here, I'll have made a mark.
Thanks, and I think you've spoken to that season of being the first, and there's a lot of responsibility that comes being the first. And I think when I got into the association, it was from a point of wanting to see a change and being part of that change, the same famous Gandhi words, like be the change you want to see. And therefore I had not gotten in wanting to be the first female president of the Architectural Association of Kenya, but through the work I was doing, people were sort of cheering me on, and I looked at it and I said, I may not want this position, but I'm the first female who has the highest chance to ever do this. So sometimes it's also a burden that's put on your leadership, and it's not always about, are you ready, are you willing? You are competent, you are confident, and sometimes it's taking on that calling. It's almost a calling that you're told you must step up and you must take this position. So for that was part of it for me, that all the ladies out in this built environment need me to take this up so that it can signal to them that they are also worthy, they are also able, they have a right to be at the table. So sometimes leadership is that you have been chosen, not necessarily because you're the best or everything, but you've been chosen to do something, and you must heed that call, whether you like it or not. So I said I was going to take it on, and I knew I had a burden to prove to everybody, because everybody will be waiting to see how will she perform, and that will speak to the rest of the women and label them and stereotype them. So there was a burden in absolutely giving 150% and being so good at it that after that everybody was like, we just want a female president. That's the one thing we want. Yeah. So that was a moment when I was very intentional. And sometimes what I'm talking about, leadership and prominence, sometimes it's a calling, and take it on, because there's so many other people who look up to you. You performing and doing well is something, is almost a legacy that then you leave for the rest who will come after you. So holding that door open, so proudly and ensuring that I did such a good job, because people were gonna judge all the other women in the built environment because of me. So went out, was very intentional. Before this, like so many people have said, I was very shy. Yes, I was good at the work, but I wasn't someone who was able to or enjoyed the spotlight, as it were. But I had to make sure, like, every article that could be written about me, every interview I would take, whether I felt ready or not, because I knew I had to make such big noise so that everybody would see and notice, and they did. And I'm just, my biggest legacies after 50 years of waiting for the first female president. I think we've had 3 in a span of 6 years after me, and the leadership of the Architectural Association is 65, 80, sometimes 80% women, of an organization that is 90% men. And I meet men who say, it's okay, we want a female leader. It's okay, we've seen what female leaders can do, and for us, and I've been lucky, Akina Mugure, who came after me, have done such a phenomenal job that we're just proving to it that we are worthy, we are capable, and holding the door open for others is just super important. So sometimes it's a higher calling. It's not only, prominence is not about you. There's so much more to being a leader.
Now, Sumayya, I remember one of the delegates talked about this. Sometimes they look at her and they'll stereotype. Now, you're in a space that is male-dominated as well, the fintech space, and you are in oil and gas before that. What are some of the barriers that you had to overcome to make sure that, you know what, I'm here and you must accept that I'm in the room and I have something to offer, building this fintech space of yours?
Let me start a little bit before that, because I think for me, stereotypes go back a little bit farther than stepping into male-dominated oil and gas and male-dominated, finance or fintech. And really, I come from an environment and a community where girls traditionally got married very, very, very early. And so by the time I was finishing high school, my father already had a marriage proposal for me from an extremely respectable family, as in it really would be unheard of to turn back a proposal, from a family like that. But my parents did. And my parents said, our daughter wants to study, and she will study for as long and to whatever extent she wants to study. And only after that, when she's ready, will this other conversation then have the time. And so, for me, I see myself really as an output of all these inputs that have been put into me by so many different people along the road. So what I have done for myself comes much further down the road. It's all these other people who have spoken into my life, and really starting with my parents. My story would be very different today. I probably would be a grandmother had I gotten married at that time. Which is not to say that grandmothers can't go ahead and do all sorts of things, but it is to say that journey would have been very different had my parents not made a decision to educate their girls the same way they educated their boys. So coming from stereotypes, that was the first stereotype. And it's really interesting. We laugh about it in the family because at that time, the number of girls in university coming from the community wasn't that high. But then you start seeing little kids, coming out all over the place being called Sumayya, and it was really funny, in the family, like, hey, you've inspired people until, they've taken on your name. But fast forward, beyond that, I decided to study law and went ahead and practiced law. And I then decided that I had at that time, if you remember, we had this big wave sweeping through the country. We, the people, are taking our country back, if you remember. That was during the then President Mwai Kibaki's time. And I decided then that I, one day, will ask what my country has done for me, but before then, I'll be sure to say what I've done for my country. And then I said, I am going to go and work in a government-owned sector. I have worked in private sector. I have got the experience I have got so far. I want to go and work where I can give back to my country. Lo and behold, there was an advertisement in the paper, some company I had never heard of called National Oil. They had this one-page advertisement and they said they are looking for a head of legal. And I said to myself, well, walk the talk. You said you want to go and work in a government-owned sector. This is a government-owned entity. Apply. So I did. I'd never heard of this company. I said, fine, I will apply. One day, eventually, they called me for the interview. By then I'd forgotten I applied because it really took forever. I was sure by then they had employed somebody else. I was married by this time. And by the time they called me for the interview, I was 9 months pregnant. I kid you not. However, my daughter decided to sit in the womb. She was sitting, I think, on a leg. I could barely walk. Really, I could barely walk. I would hold on to the walls moving between my office and my partner's office. That's another conversation. Male-centric centered leadership. You're here to work. I can't see the stomach. Please just deliver. Fine, we delivered. But there I was being called for an interview. I am about to pop. That's how pregnant I was. Am I really going to go and buy a new outfit for one meeting? I said, no, I will wear what I have and I'll look as smart as I can. But for sure, this is how this thing is going down. So I went for the interview. I remember sitting, I walked into this waiting room, and Lord have mercy, there were these green velvet chairs that had been there at least since independence, according to me. And I looked at them and I said, I can't work here. Really, I can't. This place has aged thinking. How will I survive here? But remember, I couldn't walk. I couldn't run away quickly enough, right? So I had to sit there. And then the interview was full of, tough-talking lawyers in pinstripe suits. And there I was too pregnant to have energy to engage in all this, And I really think they thought I must be wife number 3. I've come there to ask for child support. I can't have been there, dressed the way I'm dressed, coming to look for this job. So then somebody asked a question and I decided to answer, and they were like, hiya, you're also here for this job? I said, yes. So anyway, I was called into the boardroom. And I remember crawling up the stairs, and poor HR man walking behind me. I could feel he wanted to carry me because I simply couldn't walk quickly enough. I went in, I had the interview. in that interview, the CEO was a woman. And the way she spoke during an interview, I said, even with those green velvet chairs, if this lady offers me this job, I am taking it. I am so inspired by her vision during the interview. I want to come and work for her. So anyway, I got the job and I joined them. And again, you know, in terms of the things we go through as women and how we need to show up. So I immediately had the baby after that. That's how ready I was to have the baby. And then they called me, they said, we've given you the job, but can you come now? Like now, and you know, just work from now. And I said, thank you for the job. And I would love to come after maternity leave because I want to bring the best of me. I've been up the whole night with a little baby. How do I show up to a brand new job, brand new sector, and expect to shine? Really, I'm setting myself up for failure. So please allow me to finish maternity. Okay, fine. Really, I'm so glad I did. Ladies, you know, let us help ourselves succeed, right? So I went in, I started my work. I then climbed up through the ladder. The board kept enhancing my role, head of legal, head of strategy, deputy managing director. And then, they kept promoting me. These are not positions I applied for. And then my then CEO's position became vacant. Now, in my little mind, since they've promoted me all along, and I am the deputy CEO, and the CEO's position is vacant, what sounded like the natural thing to do? Yeah, you know, again, in my little mind, that's what I thought. Am I not the natural fit? So I applied. Lord have mercy. This is when the drama started. How dare you? The board already had their candidate. You coming here wanting to apply as the CEO was not part of the plan, but you've been saying my performance is excellent all this time, and you've been promoting me. What's the linkage to you applying for CEO? I tell you, they did recruitment 3 times. I think every time I bubbled up to the top, they cancelled. We went back again. There I was, they cancelled. They 3 times recruitment for that position. Finally, the minister who was there at that time, bless him, I think he told them, guys, you have to stop this game. You must finish recruitment. And the way in which it worked, 3 names are sent to the ministry and they choose. So they sent the 3 names and the minister chose me. I didn't lobby. I didn't know anyone. And I think the question became, this lady, who is she? Where is she from? Who is her godfather? I've been promoted on merit all along. The whole conversation of having a godfather was so strange. And I said, really, for me, it is God. Anything outside of that doesn't exist. And so that was stereotype. Starting from there, this is a male-dominated industry. And how dare you just decide you think you're competent to apply? I was then thrown into a role that was very international in exposure. I was traveling all over the world. And again, the head of a national oil company, it wasn't common that this is a woman. And I have a name that wasn't very familiar to people outside of my community. So the number of international conferences I would attend, I would be speaking, and somebody would say, and the next speaker from National Oil of Kenya is Mr. Sumayya Athmail. It had to be a mister if it was, you know, and there I was stepping up. And please, not only am I a woman in hijab, seriously, can you even speak English? What do you mean? You know, what are you doing here? Or people would come for a meeting in my office to meet Mr. Sumayya, and I walk up to them. I think they many times must have thought I was the secretary. You know, I'm going to bring them to meet Mr. Sumayya. You are Sumayya? You know, let me tell you, I love being the underdog. I love it. That was a key strength. I have leveraged that, and it has totally worked for me. So that was in a sector that was very male dominated, in a government-owned sector that was very bureaucratic, again, male dominated. No other head of parastatal at that time was a woman. And yet there I was. And I wanted to be not only the best in my job, I wanted to be the best mother. I didn't see why I should give up any role. And I decided I am going to be so vigilant on my performance talk about other things, but it won't be performance. My performance will be way up there. And when my performance is up there, I can then talk about the rest of me. Why am I not shaking men's hands? Why is it that I can't do this because it's prayer time? Why? You can't fault me on performance. But if my performance is shaky, you will look for an excuse on everything. Oh, but Sumayya doesn't shake hands. I mean, whoever died because you didn't shake their hand? You know what I mean? So I was that person. I was all about performance. And I remember one day, somebody, because they were being extremely disorganized, decided that their lack of planning would be our crisis. On a Friday evening, calls all the head of parastatals for a meeting the next day, Saturday, very urgent. I said, really? I already have my plans, but no problem. I will come for the meeting, but I will bring all of me, because I had plans with my daughter. I turned up for that meeting with my daughter. She was there dressed in pink with her ponytails. And I remember this very senior person saying, Sumayya, you have come with your daughter. And I said, you see, I had plans with my daughter, but I really needed to know, what do you need so that I can organize to deliver? I need 1, 2, 3, 4. And so long as I can get that, it's okay. You go, have a nice weekend. The other men were like, we also have children, but then you should have brought all of you. You should have said, I have children as well. Why are you limiting who you are? And then you want to complain. So we did that. And eventually I decided, it's time for me to move on to another sector. I joined financial services, Islamic financial services, had some engagement in the bank. I then moved to insurance, Sharia compliant insurance. And while I was there, I realized there was a serious shortage of opportunities for Sharia compliant investment. A topic for another conversation, but the model of any insurance company is that you pull your funds and you invest. So the only reason you're 20,000 and somebody's 30 and somebody else is 50 can give you a claim of $1 million or $2 million is because the funds are pooled and they invested. But now the requirements were such that you had to invest certain amount of money with the central bank. Central bank doesn't have sukuks. They didn't have anything that was Sharia compliant. The problem with that is that from a Sharia point of view, you put your money in the bank. My competitors would then take the interest as profit, alternative income. For us, you cannot even take that into your books. It is regarded as haram money. You give it out to charity. And because it is haram, you can't even talk about, look at us helping the poor, the widows, the orphans, because then you're benefiting from money that is haram by having publicity. So you give it out quietly. You only record it internally for audit and what have you. You cannot tell anybody what you're doing. And so then I looked at the other opportunities for investment and I said, this field is too limited. I started curating investments for the company I was running. And compared to the returns we were earning before, I started delivering returns about 500% above market. Yes, it's hard work because you get into the field and you do the actual curation of investment. And I saw the need. So I said, rather than keep talking about how there are no opportunities, who am I waiting for? Why am I not the person creating these opportunities? So then I moved to create Iktifaa, which is an investment house to do the Sharia governance advisory, to help people put together investments. And then we also, through Inuwah, created a platform for SMEs looking for funding to apply and investors looking for impact or Sharia compliant funding to also apply through there. I think in conclusion, what I want to say about this journey, it has been very strongly male dominated. A lot of times, including my my interview when I was moving from the law firm that I was doing holding over to my first major job working as a senior associate in a law firm. I remember walking in for the meeting and the comment was like, "You're Mrs. Athmani." Yes. But you're so small. We thought there'd be more of you. You keep having this comment of, we think there would be more of you. And so I got very comfortable thinking that I am not more than who I am, but I am definitely not less. And I'm very comfortable in that space. And I've kept evolving myself. I have a motto that you're either green and growing or you're ripe and rotting. I want to continue growing for a long time to come.
Now, Sicily, as she was talking, I could just see you nodding because you're very familiar with these operations in the government and the bureaucracies. But from your perspective and your experience, what are some of the practical ways that a woman can increase her leadership and influence, especially in spaces like the government where there's so much bureaucracy?
A few facts that my colleague is sharing here. And for the ladies who one day, as you continue your growth path, you may want to join Mercy in government. It's not a bad place to be in. And it's not a place that you have to corrupt your way in to get into. Because like Sumayya, I've never spent 1 cent Kenya money to move as a CEO, to move as a PS, to move as a cabinet minister. What speaks for you is your performance. What speaks for you, because performance can be, you're doing very well. Our sister from Ghana here, in the back room, you're doing so well. But the people who are creating visibility for how the company is performing, half the time, 80% happen to be the men. And this is why self-advocacy is not a sin. You must get out there and say, I did it. Do it with humility. And so, coming back again to say, it is a place where you also will need to be somewhat political savvy. It is a place where you'll need to actually keep learning. Make learning your friend. Move with the trends. Right now, and the reason I'm trying to plug the gap for emotional intelligence is that 10 of the most sought after skills today, globally, in the future of work, in the place of work, is emotional intelligence. We've talked about self-advocacy, your own confidence, that little voice that tells you don't move. And until and unless you know your limitations and your strengths, can you then be able to tell that little voice, quiet for a moment, I know I can do it, I'll do it. So the reason we are in this place is also to say to you, don't do it alone. We may have attempted to do it alone. We may have attempted to have very few mentors around us. We may have thought coaching is a foreign concept. I actually never interacted with executive coaching until I was appointed the Minister for Health. I'd already been in cabinet for 2.5 years. But until the radio call comes through to say, Sicily Kariuki, Minister for Health. And the closest you got to health is when you're either going to see your doctor or when you're actually going to visit a patient in hospital. And here the president has decided, one Sicily Kariuki, Minister for Health, Republic of Kenya. And you're hearing it over the radio. It is at that point to look at yourself and say, because failure for me is a school. But you can't keep failing. Here are people who are sick, could die. So this is a space which is so sensitive that there's no room, there's no English word failure. And so how do you get it right, Sicily? First time, one touch, and it's right. And people are not dying. I had to actually get myself some coaches. And because it is a space which looks like you are not adequate when you go for coaching, I actually had to get some coaches all the way from Dubai. And they would fly in on a Saturday, and nobody knows where I am. A Saturday like now, I'm in a quiet room somewhere in Westlands with some 2 coaches. And they are taking me through the drills of health sector, the challenges I needed to deal with, and how to, it's a very HPV, not HID. You have not gone close to those things, And so, getting help, don't do it alone, girls. Don't do it alone. There are mentors who have done it their way, will give you some guidelines. I find mentoring very limiting because it is my story and how I was able to overcome. And this is where executive coaching gives you the liberty, because it is real discovering what it is you can be able to do and what are your limitations and what are your weaknesses, and trying to deal or cover up. So don't do it alone. There's a lot of support around. There's a lot of self-help, practical tools that you find online these days. But interpreting that can also be a bit limiting. On the other hand, in events like these, there is a lot of opportunities that have come lately. There were a little bit early in our days. But there is a lot of thank you, Yawa, and people like you who are doing these kind of things.
Now, Emma, let's talk a little bit about the education space. And you're very passionate about educating the whole person. So it's not just about rote learning, but you want women to grow up, children, boys and girls, to grow up into people who can really stand up for themselves. So tell me, what role does education play in shaping the perceptions of young girls so that when they grow up, they know, I can take up my space, I can be a leader, I can stand up for myself? And speak a little bit about the education system in Kenya, the gaps, and what you're trying to achieve with Kiota.
The whole conversations we've had this morning about leadership and impacting Africa and changing Africa is a whole ethos of Kiota. In a sense, early on, we realized that, yeah, we can do so much with adults. Yeah, it's great. Let's work at the adults. But what if we started younger? If we want to impact Africa and change our country, what if we started at 2 years old and shaping these opinions of who am I, or what's my value system? Why am I in school? Is it just to learn, or is it to do a major, or to have a mission? And therefore, sort of changing Kenya, changing Africa, one child at a time, and ensuring all these 21st century skills, whether it's critical thinking, whether it's collaboration, how are we equipping our children for this world that we have no idea about? They say in our children, I think 60-70% of the jobs that we know them as now, in 10, 15, 20 years, none of them will exist. It'll be something new. So first of all, instilling a love for learning in the children so that they love to come to school, that school is a safe place where they can express themselves, they love being, they can be curious, because curiosity is what's going to save them. Another thing is a value system. What if empathy and emotional intelligence, which is the big thing now, and when men are saying, women, you've come too much, it's because the scene has also changed. The landscape has changed to favor us. So this is our season, because our natural gifting, it's no longer about muscle, and it's more about the EQ, which is our natural gifting. But how about if we equipped our children very early on with emotional intelligence, with empathy, and that's what Kiota has been very, very big about. Kiota means a nest, a place where we're nurturing leaders, and our KPI is 2050. We know we have to produce a president for Kenya, a president, not just any president, but a president who will be empathetic, will have a value system, and will have a burden for this country, and to change not only this country, but to change Africa. So our big mission is actually to change Africa, but starting a little bit younger. So how do we pour this into the children? A love for their country, a love for their continent, so they're not just doing this to fulfill themselves, but what is their mission in changing the world? And that's in little things when they start early, like thinking beyond self. We have kindness projects, we have leadership projects, even from when you're young. What are you doing around your community to change something, even as a child, that you can do? And we've had wonderful stories of children. One big one for me was, I think, a child who started a little lending, swapping book, and that the father took that up and became the father's business. That then paid his school fees in terms of a little library, an online library where they could, swap books. So them seeing that even at my age, I can have an impact and I can change something. So that's been our different way of approaching education, because it's no longer about the rote learning. It's not about academic excellence. It is important, but AI is gonna, technically is even more intelligent than we are. But what's now mattering more is the social skill, the emotional intelligence, which I guess AI can beat us at. It's how are we connecting with people? How are we caring for each other? And that becomes a big part of the ecosystem and the education system.
Yeah, I like that, because they say the most important is the foundation, your children, and then the finishing when they're going through university. So those are the years you can play around, but the foundation and finishing are very important. And Sumayya, Emma and Sicily have talked about this emotional intelligence, EQ, social skills, and so on and so forth. In your own experience in leadership, what role have those two skills played to ensure that, even when I'm navigating some tricky positions, I'm able to use my emotional intelligence to lead with purpose and still get the job done?
What I have found is part of my leadership journey has been really seeking to understand who am I, not only as a leader, as a person, and bringing that personality into leadership and seeking to be very authentic about who I am. Because you'll hear all sorts of stories and all sorts of pointers, and you should and you shouldn't. But what I have learned along the way is that being authentic is about being the very best version of oneself, your way. My way may not be your way. Somebody else's way may not be my way. But there's so much we can pick and learn from each other. And there's so much that we can equally impart as we seek to do leadership in our way. I have worked in a very male-dominated entity where essentially, this wasn't said, but the culture was leave the rest of you at the door. We only want the employee at work. Any other stories around that really not being entertained. You're here to work, please work and deliver. No, nothing else, around that. And so that was the environment I grew up in for a while, until I then ended up working for a female boss for the first time. And all of a sudden it became okay to talk about, she has a school event for the children, and so she can't go for the meeting, can't be at that time because she's going to school and that was such a wow moment for me. Oh, wow, you mean it's okay? It's okay to talk about family obligations at the workplace. It's okay. And it really was such a light bulb moment for me about bringing your whole self to work. And what I took from that, and this has then continued to be my own perspective, all those important things will be in the calendar. Yes, according to me, I don't delegate my children. I do not delegate my children. I remember many years ago, as a very young executive in the oil industry, meeting a very senior lady in oil and gas globally. And I was so in awe. Oh my God, this lady, look where she's sitting, such a massive position. And I wanted to learn from her. And I said to her, so tell me about your journey. Has it been worth it? And she paused for a little bit, and then she said to me, no, it hasn't been worth it. And I said, oh my God, why? And she said, because I was so busy growing my career. By the time I reached the top, my children had grown and left the house. And I said, for sure, I am not going to be the one who's going to let this happen. I am going to be part of my children's life. I don't want to be at the top of the pecking order and you're there alone because your children grew up and left. You probably, have so much distance between you and the people who are close to you because it was all about work. And then you end up compensating for absence by buying all the gadgets and toys you can think of, thinking that, but see, I gave you the latest iPad, see, I gave you how about you just give them your time? And I remember somebody telling me, I couldn't attend so-and-so's performance in school, but I sent a video crew to record. And the child was just horrified because a lot of the school events, there was a video crew recording because the parent couldn't be there. And what they really want is you there cheering. The soccer mom said, you may not even understand the game, but just your presence, cheering. Maybe it was an own goal, but hey, mom is cheering, So what I learned about emotional intelligence is that all of us are going through something. And I learned that it is much more important to be kind than to be right. Sometimes you're so focused on being right, you destroy the person in the process of proving a point. You can be quietly right by really understanding what else somebody is going through And this I found to be really important. I also found being a female leader really just encouraged other women to apply for jobs where I was. And all of a sudden, it wasn't about what you call affirmative action, that we want to deliberately increase the number of women. Yes, we did. And we deliberately tracked metrics on that. But just that there was a female leader there made more women apply. And it's a female leader who comes from a very small, community, not a major community. It just made people feel, if Sumayya can do it, I can do it. I am going to apply. I'm going to put my hand up. I'm going to, and I found really pushing the ladies forward. Exactly what was said here. Why are you not applying for this job? Oh, I don't know how to do it. Yeah, so that's 1 out of 10. You have the other 9. Why are you not applying? And then, of course, the men will walk into the room. They have like 2 out of 10. They'll sit there like they own the company, all the confidence, how they're coming for your seat. I mean, that confidence is tremendous. And so there is so much for us to learn about how to position. But I also want to say, it's important to lead from where you are. And sometimes you find somebody who absolutely loves what they're doing. And somebody said, but I don't want to lead people. They're really good at what they're doing, but that's just not their thing. And one of the things I learned as a leader is to be careful not to promote people to their level of incompetence. Somebody doesn't want to lead people. You forced them to lead people. The next thing you know, they've left because you're creating emotional stress in them. In fact, one person said to me, they want my employee, but they said, I would rather be talking to animals, really. This dealing with people is just too much for me, And so, emotional intelligence to understand your people. Can I create a system where you can still be promoted without you needing to lead a team? But just because you're so good at what you do, the back engine that Joanna spoke about is tremendously important. In any company, the bricks and mortar will always be more and much more important than 1 or 2 stars. You can't have a company full of stars. Really, it will implode. But your bricks and mortar are fundamentally important. And if that is your level that you believe you shine, then shine there. Be the best brick and mortar, because this building will not stand without brick and mortar, but it will stand without the chandeliers. And we need to be very clear about that, and not pushing people to a level where they feel my only way is out because now I'm being pushed, to a place that's not comfortable. I also want to tell the ladies, sometimes we say we don't want to lead because, I'm not good at planning. And I'm not good at this, and I'm not good at that. And I really wonder about this. I mean, you have the presence to ensure there's toilet paper before you use the toilet, and you think you can't plan. These other people who are pushing their hands up for position are the ones calling you to push toilet paper under the door. Am I right? And you think you're the one who can't plan. I mean, where is this from, right? You have 500 shillings and you plan a budget for an entire family stretching for a week or 2. You think you have no financial planning skills. You really need to look at the reality of what we do on a day-to-day basis. All this multitasking, juggling we do, what we don't do enough of is highlight the skill in that. What is the skill that enables me to stop, pause, check out the bathroom? Does it have everything before I go in? There's a lot of skill in there, really. And you need to be able to pull that out so that when you're talking about, I can do this, I can do that, you can speak to where is this from, yes? And it's really important that we are able to focus on the strengths that we have. And I have found taking psychometric tests to be so amazingly important. I remember doing one test. I was so embarrassed reading the results. I was like, oh my God, who told them this about me? Really, I was embarrassed to read my own results just because of the things they highlighted. And then I took a deep breath and I went home and I told my husband, I've done this psychometric and I'm looking for, to improve myself. And so somebody who knows me very well, I want you to read so that you can add to this and that. I think that was my first psychometric. So I gave him, he read, Then he said, he gave it back to me and he said, you know what? Personally, I am not going to contribute to this because I want to continue living with you. So let's just leave this story here. But it just made me realize, are we ready to receive hard feedback? And what makes somebody feel, no, maybe you're not ready for this feedback, And so I've done repeated things around that after that, just to expose myself to the opportunity to hear hard truths. And I have Gen Zs in my house, and I tell you that truth comes hard and fast. Hard and fast, yeah? And it's part of growing so that I can highlight, these are my skills, these are my weaknesses. And really listening to the ladies introducing themselves this morning threw me back into the numerous recruitments I have done, where you ask a man, tell me a weakness. He sits, he scratches his head, he looks up, he tells you, I can't think of any weakness. I'm like, that is a weakness, that you don't know your weakness. The ladies, I have asked for, tell me one weakness. I tell you, 10 minutes later, she's on page 5 of her weaknesses. And I had that this morning. But I can't. I mean, it's great to be self-aware, but let's not, being self-aware doesn't mean we are only aware of our weaknesses. It's fundamentally important, but let's also be aware of our strengths. And I think the final thing I want to say of my journey of emotional intelligence, what I have learned, the myth that women are their own worst enemies, absolute myth. What I have found is that there are good men and bad men. There are good women and bad women. Some of the best people I have interacted with in my life have been men. They have spoken all sorts of blessings and opportunities into my life. And some of the worst people I have interacted with have been men. Some of the best people I have interacted with have been women. They have pushed me, like this lady boss I am talking about, pushed me beyond my level of discomfort and said, you go, you can do this. And some of the worst people have been women. And what I learned from all that, they are good men, good women, bad women. So let's not accept this myth. I walk into places and women are their own worst enemies. Says who? I think what it is we reinforce that myth because we repeat it and we don't learn some of the skills that men have in their own way brought to bear to help them deal with their with their toxicity. Because men come at each other hard. I have been in male-dominated industries. Let me tell you, these guys are at each other's throats like crazy. And then after that, I'll find them doing business together. So I'm like, wait, didn't you just have a really big fight with that guy? Yeah. And now you're doing business. Yeah, we can still make money together. I mean, the fact that we women can't do that. We carry battles from, when we were in high school, 30 years later, your own kids are now university. You're still talking about what she did to you in high school. So let's learn. We say wisdom, you can pick it up from whoever. Let us learn to ring fence things. The battle that you had, your emotional intelligence should allow you to ring fence it. And then let's see what we can do together. In the process, we may be able to help each other move forward. So this is part of my learning.
Emma, you talked about AI and you said it's even sometimes more intelligent than us. So in this era of AI, and we're going to take it around the table, what are you doing to ensure that your level of influence remains intact with all this artificial intelligence?
For me, interestingly, because I was an architect in a space of education, so I knew one or two things about output that I expected from education. But technically, I was not a teacher, but I had to lead teachers. I had to lead educationists who had 30 years experience in education, in leadership in education. But I show up as someone who challenges them, who brings out the best in them. So I think the future of a lot of things is in coaching, and Cicely has spoken to that. So as a leader, what I'm equipping myself with is leading as a coach. How am I challenging, inspiring that person to be their best self? And that's something that, as a leader, we all need to learn how to grow other leaders.
Indeed, AI complements emotional intelligence and leadership growth journeys, and therefore we all need to embrace it at the different levels. And it is amazing how much heavy lifting it does for you, so that then you can focus on the people-centered interventions that then cannot be delegated or relegated to AI. I like what my colleague Sumayya has said here in terms of self-awareness isn't necessarily to bring you down. Having worked with senior leaders in the health sector, most of them clinical guys, having worked a lot with engineers and geospatial and those guys in the techie spaces, it is fair to say the education curricula needs to be tweaked or disorganized completely and redone. Because what happens is that when you grew up to be a material from grade 1, because most medical doctors, for example, and architects, and my sister here, and engineers, really were a material. Truth be said, and congratulations, there is a lot of you here. And the voices that you heard from your parents and the community around you was that you can never go to B or C. And therefore, the little voice in you didn't allow you to actually grow up in terms of either the social skills or those other components which are outside of the technical spaces. And when you went up to medical school, the environment is not just competitive. When you went up to ADD, we called it up the road here, it is not just competitive, it is very male-dominated, it is very cutthroat. And when you go back to the village, if you come from the village I come from, you can't come here with grades that don't look respectable to this family, kind of thing. So when you grow up with that kind of thing, then we seem to also pass it on to the generation that comes after us. And what happens is that the component of your emotional interactions is submerged and lost in the technical spaces of doing your work. What then happens is that for you to move beyond to actually take on leadership, which is people management, becomes a little bit of an uphill task. And so most of the people that I'm working with currently are senior guys, most of them either in the clinical space, medical space, in the engineering spaces. And whenever I start the journey on the psychometric, I am certified for DISC personality test. I'm certified also for emotional intelligence practice. And when I get started with you, it is so that you have a mirror, which says these are your strengths, and I encourage you to focus on building or not letting go your strength. I don't want you to get lost on your weaknesses, but your blind points that make you say, if I am weak in a certain aspect, Claire may be just the person I need in my team. She'll give me the backup so that I don't have to sweat the small stuff trying to make things happen and move forward. I think I digress because I thought it was important that we don't get lost in this discovery of who we are. Yet it is such an important starting point for you in terms of your next journeys as a leader.
And Sumayya, as we wrap up, also tell us what role AI is playing in ensuring that you continue to put your influence out there, but at the same time, keeping it human-centered.
AI is the reality of where we are right now. I'm one of those people, for the longest time I resisted, anything to do with ChatGPT or what have you. It felt like cheating, right? And it was like, actually, I don't even know how this thing works. Yes, I know what it is. I've heard about it, but I don't. And then I said to myself, you know what? The reality is that this AI is going nowhere. So you can either live in the Stone Age, or you can live in the age that is there now, because this world is going to pass you by if you don't know what's going on. So I actually enrolled. I joined classes. I've joined master classes on AI. I wanted to really learn what is going on and how can I leverage this for good? How can I use this to actually help me push my agenda, my objectives forward? Having said that, one of the things that AI causes a lot of concern in me is the possibility for misuse, the possibility for abuse, misinformation, disinformation, all this hallucination, all these other things. And so what AI has very starkly reminded me is the need to focus on values. It's even more important than ever now to be really clear what are our values, because we don't know where this AI is going. I was in a training session with some AI expert, and he said even the AI experts don't know where this thing is going, because they are trying to push an agenda where the humans were developing the AI, but the risk is now it's going to a stage where it's going to be creating its own content, and you don't even know where exactly is this going to go. As we are looking at the reality of AI, it makes it even more important to enforce the human side of relationships. It's really, whether it is at work, whether it is at home, really ensuring we are putting the human being in the center, understanding the AI, ensuring we are getting trained, ensuring we are doing all these good things, but really being very deliberate to work on our humanity. I remember reading a report that said after the COVID pandemic, the next pandemic would come from the consequences of people spending too much time online, including those who have built relationships with online non-existent artificial partners. So that's a thing. You know, you decide rather than having a human partner, you'd rather have an artificial, online partner. And now there was a whole other pandemic coming out of that. And we really need to ensure that as we move forward, we really look backwards. We are human. All these augmentation and this and that and the other, let us use it to help us become better, but not that we are seeking to replace ourselves.
Now, I'd like to open it up for questions, and I'd like to take 3.
Have you had to relearn or reshape how you communicate or how you put out information out there to either clients, the people you're interacting with? Because from where I'm standing, I come out as so direct, and I've sometimes stepped on people, because if I was in Emma's shoes, I would have said she just hadn't had her thoughts together or something like that. And also the challenge I'm also having is finding that people do not tell the truth as it is, and they have to go around in circles. And I found it in corporate, where before that, when I was in a firm of 5 people, we'd just be like, since I'm in country surveying, there's no money for whatever it is that you want. But in corporate, you'll tell the client something else instead of just saying there's no money. So have you had to relearn or reshape how you communicate, how you put your point out there so that it's very clear, especially as a woman, and you don't come across as too harsh or too hard?
My question, I think, is to Sicily. What does that, when you talk about the boys getting behind the scenes and making us fall back and not go, to the prominence where we are being called to, what did that sound like? Because maybe in the room there's somebody who wants to get into the politics, and we know Kenyan politics are nasty, but I believe it's spaces that we need to get into as women. I like something that Emma said, when you were talking about you being president in the Architects Association, and people realizing what women leaders can do, but what price does it come at? So what did that look like for you? What was happening behind the scenes? How did they manage to push you out? But I am rooting for you for 2027, honestly, because I think you're all that.
So sometimes we have these forums and we're all standing out and we're all leaning in and, doing all these things. But you're seeing a lot of women coming down the pipeline and they're not forming families. And you can't form alone, you see. So it's like a socialization that we have to go and retrieve. You keep talking about retrieving tradition, thinking about it. Where is the balance? How do you talk into that space? Yeah. So that these regrets, you don't stand at the end of your career literally and tell us, I regret it. Where was your truth when I needed it, when I was trying to say, should I get married? Should I have 2 babies? Should I have 1? Should I have 5 or not? Yeah. So maybe speak a bit of that.
Thanks for that. And Sicily, I'll give you the question both about having to drop out and how you dealt with that, as well as the one about being blunt. So sometimes people are just blunt. It can't happen, but that doesn't always make them look good. So how do you deal with telling the truth, but at the same time doing it in a nice way but firm? And then that issue of having to drop out and how you had to shape being in the boys' club and still managing through that.
So part of emotional intelligent intelligent behavior for anybody in leadership has two very foundational components. One is awareness of self. Who am I? Where are my gaps? How do I show up? How do I inspire? How do I communicate? How do I deliver? The next most important building block is awareness of others. How do they like to be communicated to? Who are they? How do they get motivated to go beyond the targets and the KPIs? Now, with the shift in the demographics that we are aware of, it's becoming more important for you to be aware of the others. Equal measure to your self-awareness, because it's one thing to be aware of who you are. It's extremely very, very important to be aware that leadership is shared to the people that you delegate to help you deliver. You deliver through people. So they are as important in terms of you knowing who they are, what makes them tick, what makes them smile, what makes them deliver even when you're not there. And therefore, what we do, part of the assessments that we do, especially the personality test, is for me to help you to actually put yourself in the profile of the personality where you belong. So that you know, like Sicily, by now, I can mentor you. I'm direct like that. But because Maya Angelou reminds us, people will long forget what you say to them, but how you made them feel is what they'll go to the grave with. You can mute your directness by just knowing that you are that direct, and she may not like. She's a different personality. The challenge we have as leaders is that we tend to want other people to be our mirror. You know, if Sumayya, you have been recruiting, chances are the halo effect hits you when that girl comes through the door and you're on this side interviewing, and she seems like has the kind of energy that you have. She pretty much, is dressed close to what you are. As a leader, you're being asked to be very, very cautious of that, because we all are different. The different personalities, each brings a different aspect onto the leadership and decision-making table. There are those who are very dominant, very direct in terms of how they speak, in a hurry to move. They're always like that. Those are dominant personalities. There are those who are influencers. Behind the scenes, this girl from Ghana, I can tell she's playing her games behind the scenes. She's an influencer, quiet, superpower behind the scenes. You need her on your team if you're that direct. There's somebody, and I think Mercy, my friend here, and I mention her because she caused me to be here many times. It's possible if I look at you and put you on the scale, you could be somebody who is very stable, a stabilizer, or a very analytical person. The bit I have interacting with you. I need you on the table. And then there isn't somebody whose business it is to make everybody just happy and easy and bring coffee and laugh, even when the ceiling is coming down. Those 4 predominant personality styles, which also have sub-personality styles, is good for you to be able to appreciate what they mean, so that when you look at your team, and here I am, I remember my days in health as a cabinet minister, and there's a cholera outbreak in Kibra, and I want to validate so that then we can move the teams there tomorrow. Even if my director of public health is very, very technically knowledgeable, I have to get around to tell him, Dr. Jane, I've received signals that we could be facing a crisis in Kibra. But because we need to have the report tomorrow morning for us to move to the field, I want to recommend that you can sit with Mercy, you can sit with the dominant person, and you can sit with the one who makes you smile, because I need a report to go to cabinet in the morning for us to move and get resources. So in a manner, I have not gone to Jane because I know Jane is extremely very analytical. If I take time and allow her to run with the exercise, she'll come back to me in the morning and say, but there is no evidence, nobody died. Now, what will I tell the country if the first person dies? She's being analytical, but that's her personality. She won't move until 100% facts are on the table. She has even sent a technical team to Kibra. I just want directional, right, report so that we can move. and intervene. So just knowing that I am the predominant, I could move with it. If I allow you, I think you will go to Kibra before there is even a feedback to cabinet. Is another kind of a problem. So just knowing the personalities that you require give you an opportunity to actually compose the teams, to appoint your team leadership, but to speak with them in a manner which is politically correct. Now, do we need it in corporate all the time? Maybe not. And it really depends on the emergency that you're handling or the situation that you're handling. But I want to appeal to anybody that is a very, very predominant personality as you go up the ladder, because it's about people and numbers. You must then begin muting. But you can only mute if you know who you are. You can only mute if you know the people in your team, how they like to be talked to. We say leadership is speaking to them so that I can prepare her to pack her suitcase to go to hell without knowing that that's where she's going. This is what leadership is about in a lot of cases, right? A lot of political jargon. But yes, so there is a science and an art to that. And since I am working with people in the technical spaces who are very direct, then I always want to subject them also to this understanding, so that as we go through the coaching, then there is an objective, monitorable tool and framework that you actually, using, which then you can also be able to use with your teams when you're back in the workplace. But yes, thank you very much. It can be a little bit exciting, but also very frustrating to be in the public spaces. Yawa, that is the handbag I carry in my life. Do you want to raise it up for me, please? That is my handbag all the time. Not because I can't carry the kind of beautiful handbags that you're carrying. But in the year 2017, I was then the Cabinet Minister of Public Service, Gender and Youth. And there was a crisis that we were trying to manage. My office then was in the office of the President. And so we were called with my colleagues to urgently go and do a press briefing. If you have, the office of the President where it faces. And so I walked down with my big bag, but the cameras were already there. There was a serious national crisis, and I was carrying my bag. And there's no way I was going to actually, stand there carrying my bag. And therefore, I threw my bag to my security aide, and it became news. BBC had to call me. That female minister whose handbag is carried by a male security guard. I'm sure if you go to the media, you'll find it there because it's never forgiven. And I therefore made my mind that carrying handbags in this kind of office setups is not my thing. So you'll find everything in that bag. There is money, there is card, there is makeup, there is mirror, there is everything. What is the message here? Adaptable, being agile, speaking to the situation where you find yourself, making a lemonade out of the lemons that the world throws at you. And so when I negotiated to exit cabinet after a 1 year plus soul searching, do I really want to exit cabinet? It comes with trappings, right? I hadn't allowed them to go into my head though, so it was not very difficult. Like we agreed, consulted a lot of the people, the 5 people around you, including Martha Karua, Charity, women who had actually left cabinet and didn't die because they left cabinet. And I thought that would be good to, guide me on this. And they said, so what is your motivation? My motivation is to confirm that there can be a different governance and leadership template for our devolved units. I was too invested in marketing and lobbying for the constitution currently, which brought the devolved units. And therefore, I still carry a burden of wanting to see devolution, work. And they said, so if that is what is itching you, unless and until you do it, if you are to go to glory, your body will not rest. It will still be turning. So get out, go resign. My family said as much. They say, that thing which Carol was speaking about, that thing, it will not go. At night you'll wake up and think, what? I'm in the village. I'm no longer in Afia house. And so it was. And finally, when I negotiated with my boss and the president to exit, he didn't have a big problem, but then he had a problem. But I couldn't read. back to you. Awareness of others. 10 years later, I still could not tell the body language and the verbal communication that the boss was trying to give at me. Because 2 days to the deadline, legal deadline, he kept on saying, but you have time, why are you in a hurry? That alone should have actually signaled to me what he's saying and not saying. But be as it may, I resigned, and it was a good run, adrenaline, it was beautiful. I mean, there isn't one word, including being called an imposter, that I wasn't called. But see, I was prepared. And I wasn't going to apologize, because this was where my vision was going to meet with action for impact. That is my definition of leadership. So it didn't matter. And my family, my husband came with me on the campaign trail, and it was good until the deadline for submitting of the names of the nominees was beyond. And then I got wondering, Nairobi is the most complicated county. How is it a village, a rural county? We are not able, the president is not able to make a decision. You know, and I started, feeling like something was not right. Again, that feeling came back to me, say something is going wrong here. And you see, the point at which then the president called, it was too late for me to take any other direction. So again, I called myself into my boardroom and I sat and I said, Sicily, is this life threatening? Are you gonna die if you don't do it? Because remember, I don't have an exit path. Deadline gone, no nomination, and the president himself calling and saying, you know what? Why don't you come back in 2027? We'll support you. Now it was, like that. 3 months before, I had been offered 5 tickets. No, direct nomination, including the ruling, the government in office today. But because I exited cabinet on a commitment that I was going to run on this particular party, I had to honor. Girls, however bitter it is, swallow. Is your decision. I made a commitment. I was not about to start jumping up and about. I saw it to the end. And so when I called myself to the final meeting, I said, might it be that this is another school you've just taken me, is a huge lesson. How do I use the lemons that have been thrown my way in this situation? Oh, another reinvention journey. I turned the corner and I said, Sicily, are you defined by you being a cabinet minister? One who resigns? Are you defined by being a CEO of the tea sector? What defines you? Girls, invest in that which cannot be taken away from you. An appointive office, because a cabinet is appointive, is given to you. Out of 50 million Kenyans, 22 of you are one of them. It's a privilege to make a difference and to bring impact. But that is not what defines you. What defines me today is a grandmother of 2 beautiful children, is a mother to many children, is a wife to the love of my life. It is the community engagements that I have. Unfortunately, because we lost our daughter 5 years ago, even that was a few other lemons being thrown my way. And what we did in honor of Noni, we created a Noni Kariuki Foundation, a foundation that through which we have taken many children to school, a foundation that I focus on what defined me once. What defined me once was signing the first menstrual hygiene policy as a Minister for Health. And I say, because there are girls not going to school because of missing sanitary pads, this foundation, which my daughter was already doing, is the channel that I'm going to use to continue impacting and taking sanitary towels to girls who are in very vulnerable situations. So I translated what was policy when I sat in the policy decision-making table into an intervention at the grassroots. What I also do is, because we spoke as we saw, is mental health issues on an all-time high time now. But in 2018, when I was a Minister for Health, the signs were already there. There was a lot of strife, there was a lot of struggle. And when I visited the National Mental Hospital then for my familiarization, I knew there was a problem that I needed to solve at that point in time. I needed to cause a policy to address mental health as if it was any other kind of illness, not stigma, because anybody that has a mental issue is stigmatized. We point at them, we think they have been bewitched, we think there's something they didn't do right, and we had to break down that. So I caused a task force that again came forward with the first mental health policy, upgrading the system, looking at processes in there, this and the other. So what do I do from that? I left the policy almost being completed. What I do, part of my giving back to community through this foundation, is also educating, especially the young people, on mental health and wanting to normalize the conversation. It's an illness like any other. So I do that among the other things that I do in terms of saying policy defined me in a period. It was a season. What can I do with the policy now that I am on this other side? So an interesting journey of reinvention. So girls, what I do is that I have documented my story and journey in here. This is my memoir, is the first chapter. This goes for 2.5. There are a few, copies around here. The money that I get here, I don't have donors like my friend there, is what I use to keep some vulnerable children in school. It's what I use also for menstrual hygiene packs for the guys in the villages where I work. So get one, you will be also supporting that cause, because we all can support that cause. How did it feel? It didn't last for me 3 days, and I knew I was on another journey. And I was on that other journey to confirm that a fall is a good lesson for me. I come back cleverer, more resilient, more networked. Without saying too much, I will even have a political party and I will go. Those are the lessons I've learned.
Awesome. So know your seasons. And as we wrap up, Sumayya, please answer that question that was asked about work-life balance. And then the vulnerability. You see someone up there, they didn't have children, and then they confess, I regret. So speak about that balance.
So I think what is fundamental is to really be clear on your values. If my values are, I want a family, I want children, I want to have a happy marriage. And to my mother's words, no matter what level you climb in your career, no matter how much more educated you may be, remember, respect to your husband is fundamental, even as you seek love. So that I don't go home with my diva. I'm CEO, so I go there. By the way, part of being strategic, do I need to go there declaring my CEO-ness in my house, or I just want to achieve my objective? Yes, I need to be strategic about how we engage, isn't it? So if what you want is family, then work your life to achieve that, but seek balance. I think sometimes where we challenge ourselves and overstretch as women, we want to be superwoman. Yeah, you want to be the best at work, and you should. You want to be the best mother, and you should. You want to be the best wife, and you should. Now, do you need to be the best at buying tomatoes? Do I need to be at the market on Saturday morning choosing the perfect potato, the perfect tomato? Seriously, for myself, for those of you who love to, please do you. I decided a long time ago, I am giving myself no brownie points for buying tomatoes. My house help does a much better job than me at choosing a better tomato, a better orange. I decided that at work, I talk about people, processes, systems. I need the same for my personal life. I outsource, I delegate, I reach out, I do all those things. I don't need to try running around doing everything. Then I'm exhausted. And the thought of having a child, by then you're finished. It's like, really, where am I going to have time for? So let's learn to reach out to the networks for the things we don't have to do directly, so that then we can do those things we want, like having families and spending time with the children and the family.